Africa's court shock. Lungu's lawyer exposes family secrets. Evidence backfires. Africa is watching closely. In a courtroom packed with tension, Edgar Lungu's lawyer just revealed shocking family secrets that no one saw coming. Evidence that was supposed to protect the Lungu family has now exploded right in their faces. What happened inside that courtroom could change Zambia's political landscape forever, and the verdict might just rewrite history. Stay with me. This is bigger than just one case. This is a political earthquake that Africa's political drama takes a shocking turn as former Zambian President Edgar Lungu's lawyer exposes family secrets in a high-stakes court battle. What happened inside the courtroom has stunned Zambia and sent shockwaves across Africa. Evidence meant to defend the Lungu family may have just backfired, changing the entire case. Calendar with the verdict approaching, political tensions are rising, and questions about loyalty, betrayal, and power are spreading beyond Zambia's borders. Is this a legal battle or a political war? Watch till the end to uncover what Lungu's lawyer revealed about the family, how the evidence unexpectedly turned against them, why this case matters for Zambia and Africa's political future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Inspire Africa Official for more real-time African political investigations. Hit the bell so you never miss the truth behind the headlines. Breaking news from Africa's courtroom. The legal battle over the burial of Zambia's former president Edgar Lungu, who passed away on June 5, 2025, in Pretoria, South Africa, has captured significant attention across the African continent and beyond. This dispute, unfolding primarily in South Africa's Pretoria High Court, centers on a contentious disagreement between Lungu's family and the Zambian government, led by President Hakainde Hichilema, over where and how Lungu should be laid to rest. The case is not merely a logistical or familial matter, but a deeply political one, reflecting long-standing rivalries, questions of national tradition, and issues of dignity, sovereignty, and legal precedent. Context of the dispute. Edgar Lungu, Zambia's sixth president from 2015 to 2021, died at the age of 68 while receiving medical treatment in South Africa. His death sparked a national mourning period in Zambia, but it also ignited a fierce dispute between his family, supported by his political party, the Patriotic Front (PF), and the Zambian government. The government insists on repatriating Lungu's body to Zambia for a state funeral at the Embassy Park presidential burial site in Lusaka, where all other Zambian presidents since independence in 1964 have been buried. Lungu's family, however, citing his explicit wishes, prefers a private burial in South Africa, away from the involvement of President Hichilema, with whom Lungu had a bitter political rivalry. The Pretoria High Court's intervention on June 25, 2025, halted a planned burial in Johannesburg just hours before it was set to occur, following an urgent application by Zambia's Attorney General Mulalo Kabesha. The court set a hearing for August 4, 2025 to decide the final resting place, leaving Lungu's body in limbo and mourners in both Zambia and South Africa in a state of uncertainty. This legal standoff has not only delayed Lungu's burial, but also exposed deep-seated political tensions, raised questions about the treatment of former heads of state, and sparked debates about cultural, legal, and political norms in Zambia and across Africa. Why this case is breaking news. The case is considered breaking news for several reasons. Unprecedented nature. The dispute over a former president's burial is rare in African politics, where state funerals are typically orchestrated with national consensus to honor a leader's legacy. The public and legal nature of this disagreement, involving a foreign court, is highly unusual and has drawn international attention. Political rivalry. The feud between Lungu and Hichilema, which dates back years and includes allegations of persecution, arrests, and electoral disputes, has spilled over into the afterlife, making the case a flashpoint for Zambia's polarized political landscape. International implications. The involvement of a South African court and the diplomatic efforts of South African officials, including Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola, highlight the regional dimensions of the case, with implications for how African nations handle the legacies of their leaders. Public sentiment. The case has stirred strong emotions among Zambians, with many expressing frustration over the lack of closure and the politicization of Lungu's death. Social media platforms, including X, have been abuzz with opinions, ranging from calls for transparency to accusations of government overreach. Legal and cultural dimensions. The courtroom drama in Pretoria underscores a clash between legal principles and cultural values. The Zambian government argues that Lungu, as a former head of state, is national property and must be buried in accordance with tradition at the Embassy Park site. This stance is supported by a precedent set in the case of Zambia's first president, Kenneth Kaunda, where a local court ruled that the state has authority over the burial of former presidents. However, Lungu's family, through their lawyer Makibi Zulu, contends that there is no legal obligation for a state funeral and that Lungu's explicit wish was to avoid Hichilema's involvement, reflecting his personal and political grievances. Culturally, Zambia, a predominantly Christian nation, places significant importance on mourning and burial rituals. The standoff has disrupted these traditions, leaving many Zambians uncertain about how to honor their former leader. The government's decision to cut short the national mourning period on June 20, 2025, citing the need to resume normal life, further inflamed tensions, with critics arguing it disrespected Lungu's legacy and the nation's grieving process. Broader significance. This case is breaking news because it transcends a mere logistical dispute, touching on issues of national identity, political reconciliation, and and the rule of law. It raises questions about the balance between individual wishes and state obligations, the role of foreign courts in resolving intra-African disputes, and the impact of personal animosities on public processes. As the August 4, 2025 hearing approaches, the outcome will likely set a precedent for how Zambia and other African nations handle the deaths of former leaders, particularly in politically charged contexts. Who is Edgar Lungu and why this case matters? Edgar Chagwa Lungu was a pivotal figure in Zambian politics, serving as the country's sixth president from January 25, 2015 to August 24, 2021. His life, career, and legacy are central to understanding why the legal battle over his burial has become a matter of national and regional significance. This section explores Lungu's background, his political journey, his relationship with Hichilema, and the reasons this case resonates far beyond a family-government dispute. Edgar Lungu's background. Born on November 11, 1956, at Ndola Central Hospital in Zambia, Edgar Lungu grew up in a modest environment and went on to become a trained lawyer and politician. He graduated with a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Zambia in 1981 and began his career at Andre Massey and Company Advocates in Lusaka. His early professional life included stints at Barclays Bank and Zambia Consolidated Copper Mines, reflecting his versatility before entering politics. Lungu also underwent military training at Miltes in Kabwe, which added a disciplined dimension to his persona. Lungu's entry into politics came through the Patriotic Front (PF), a party founded by Michael Sata. Under Sata's presidency, Lungu held significant roles, including Minister of Justice and Minister of Defense. Following Sata's death in October 2014, Lungu was chosen as the PF's candidate for the January 2015 presidential by-election, narrowly defeating Hakainde Hichilema to complete Sata's term. He was re-elected in 2016, again defeating Hichilema in a closely contested and controversial election. Presidency and legacy. Lungu's presidency, 2015 to 2021, was marked by both achievements and controversies. Achievements. Lungu was praised for infrastructure development, particularly a massive road-building program that improved connectivity across Zambia. His administration also focused on energy projects and urban development, earning him support among some segments of the population. Controversies. Lungu's tenure was criticized for economic mismanagement, leading Zambia to become Africa's most indebted nation by the time he left office. Allegations of corruption plagued his administration, with investigations into his family's wealth, including properties and cash, raising questions about illicit gains. His government's crackdown on dissent, including the 2017 arrest of Hichilema on treason charges, fueled accusations of authoritarianism. Political influence. Even after losing the 2021 election to Hichilema by nearly 1 million votes, Lungu remained a formidable figure in Zambian politics. His return to frontline politics in 2023, despite being barred from running again by the Constitutional Court in December 2024, underscored his enduring influence within the PF and among opposition supporters. The Lungu-Hichilema rivalry. The rivalry between Lungu and Hichilema is central to understanding the current dispute. Their animosity dates back to electoral battles in 2015 and 2016, where Hichilema accused Lungu of rigging elections. During Lungu's presidency, Hichilema was imprisoned for over 100 days in 2017 on treason charges after his motorcade allegedly failed to give way to Lungu's. After Hichilema's 2021 victory, Lungu faced harassment, including police searches of his home and restrictions on his movements, which he described as virtual house arrest. The government's decision to strip Lungu of his retirement benefits due to his return to active politics further deepened the rift. Lungu's reported dying wish that Hichilema should not be anywhere near his body reflects the personal and political enmity that has shaped this case. The family's insistence on a private burial in South Africa is rooted in this history, as they seek to honor Lungu's wishes and avoid what they perceive as a hypocritical state funeral presided over by his rival. Why this case matters. The legal battle over Lungu's burial is significant for several reasons. National unity and reconciliation. Zambia prides itself on its history of peaceful transitions of power, a rarity in Africa. The dispute risks undermining this legacy, as it highlights unresolved tensions between political factions. The government's push for a state funeral is seen as an attempt to assert national unity, while the family's resistance reflects distrust in the state's intentions. Legal precedent. The case could set a precedent for how Zambia handles the funerals of former presidents. Constitutional lawyer John Sangwa has noted the absence of clear laws governing such matters, suggesting that the outcome could prompt legislative reforms. Cultural sensitivity. In Zambia, a Christian-majority nation, funerals are sacred events. The prolonged uncertainty and public dispute have caused distress among mourners, who feel deprived of the opportunity to pay their respects in a dignified manner. Regional implications. The involvement of a South African court raises questions about sovereignty and the role of foreign jurisdictions in resolving African disputes. It also underscores the need for regional cooperation, as seen in South African Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola's mediation efforts. Political polarization. The case has galvanized Lungu's supporters within the PF, who accuse the government of politicizing his death. Meanwhile, Hichilema's administration faces faces criticism for its handling of the situation, with some arguing it has failed to rise above personal grievances. Lungu's legacy in context. Lungu's legacy is a polarizing one. Supporters view him as a charismatic leader who advanced Zambia's infrastructure and maintained political stability during turbulent times. Critics, however, point to economic decline, corruption scandals, and authoritarian tendencies as stains on his record. The ongoing dispute over his burial encapsulates these divisions, with each side framing the issue to suit their narrative. For the PF, Lungu's wishes must be respected to honor his dignity. For the government, a state funeral is a matter of national pride and tradition. This case matters because it is a microcosm of Zambia's broader political challenges, reconciling a divided populace, addressing historical grievances, and establishing clear protocols for honoring former leaders. The outcome will likely influence public trust in institutions and the government's ability to foster unity in a polarized nation. Inside the courtroom, the lawyer's shocking statement. The Pretoria High Court hearings in August 2025 have been a focal point of the dispute, with dramatic moments that have captured public attention. One of the most striking developments was a statement by the Lungu family's lawyer, Mkibi Zulu, which has been described as shocking for its bold accusations against the Zambian government. This section delves into the courtroom proceedings, the context of Zulu's statement, and its implications for the case. The courtroom setting. The Pretoria High Court, under Deputy Judge President Aubrey Fago Ledwaba, became the stage for a high-stakes legal battle when the Zambian government filed an urgent application on June 25, 2025, to halt Lungu's burial in Johannesburg. The court granted the request, postponing the funeral until a full hearing on August 4, 2025. The proceedings have been marked by intense arguments, with the government seeking three specific reliefs: exclusive rights to repatriate Lungu's body to Zambia, authority to take possession of the body from the South African funeral home without family involvement, power to dictate which family members may accompany the body under government-imposed conditions. The Lungu family, represented by Mkibi Zulu and South African Council ADV Casper Welchmode, has fiercely opposed these demands, arguing that they violate Lungu's wishes and the family's rights. The shocking statement. During the August 4, 2025 hearing, Mkibi Zulu made a statement that reverberated across Zambia and beyond. The Zambian government treated Edgar Lungu as an ordinary citizen in life, denying him the basic entitlements of a former president, yet now claims he must be accorded full state honors in death. This is disingenuous and a game of entitlement rather than justice. This statement was shocking for several reasons. Accusation of hypocrisy. Zulu accused the government of reversing its stance on Lungu's status. During his post-presidency years, Lungu faced restrictions on his movements, loss of retirement benefits, and police harassment, which Zulu argued demonstrated that the government treated him as a political adversary rather than a respected former head of state. The sudden insistence on a state funeral, he claimed, was a political maneuver to control Lungu's legacy. Health allegations. Zulu went further, suggesting that the government's actions contributed to Lungu's deteriorating health and premature death. He cited instances where Lungu was allegedly denied permission to travel for medical treatment or international engagements, implying that earlier access to care might have saved his life. Moral question. Zulu posed a provocative question. If the family believes President Hichilema's presence would rob the funeral of dignity, why insist on it? This challenged the government's moral authority to oversee Lungu's burial, framing their actions as disrespectful to his wishes and the family's grief. Context and evidence. Zulu's statement was grounded in several documented incidents. Restrictions on movement. In 2023, Lungu publicly complained of being virtually under house arrest, with police monitoring his movements and restricting his travel. He told the BBC's Newsday program that he was accosted and challenged whenever he left his home. The government denied these claims, asserting that any monitoring was for his safety. Loss of benefits. After Lungu returned to active politics in October 2023, the government stripped him of his retirement benefits, citing Zambian law that disqualifies former presidents who re-enter politics from receiving such privileges. This move was seen as punitive by Lungu's supporters. Health concerns. Lungu had a history of health issues, including throat surgery a decade earlier for a narrowing of the esophagus. His death in South Africa, reportedly due to complications from surgery, fueled speculation that earlier medical travel could have altered the outcome. Zulu's claims were supported by court filings, including arguments from ADV Welchmode, who asserted that there was no evidence Lungu wanted to be buried in Zambia. The family's legal team emphasized that Lungu's explicit instructions were for a private burial in South Africa, free from Hichilema's involvement. Government's response. The Zambian government, represented by Attorney General Mulalo Kabesha, countered that Lungu's status as a former president made his burial a matter of national interest. Kabesha cited the precedent of Kenneth Konda's burial, where a local court ruled that former presidents are national property and their funerals should be state-managed. He argued that a grave had already been prepared at Embassy Park and that personal wishes must yield to tradition and public interest. Kabesha also challenged the credibility of the family's claims, with some government-aligned voices demanding proof of Lungu's death, citing the family's refusal to allow public viewing of the body. This led to speculation, as reported in the Zambian Observer, that the family might be concealing something, though no evidence supported support such claims. Impact of the statement. Zulu's statement had several repercussions. Public reaction. The accusation of government hypocrisy resonated with Lungu's supporters, who see the case as an extension of his persecution. Posts on X reflected outrage, with users like @Advocatemahir praising Zambia's democratic history but lamenting the current impasse. Political polarization. The statement deepened divisions, with the PF accusing the government of using Lungu's death for political gain. PF acting president Given Lubinda called the government's actions a political game, while civil society groups urged dialogue to preserve national dignity. Legal strategy. By framing the government's actions as inconsistent, Zulu strengthened the family's case that their wishes should take precedence. The statement also shifted the narrative, portraying the family as defenders of Lungu's dignity against a vindictive state. Broader implications. The courtroom drama, punctuated by Zulu's statement, highlights the intersection of law, politics, and personal grief. It raises questions about the state's role in posthumous affairs, the weight of a former president's wishes, and the ethical boundaries of legal arguments. The statement's shock value lies in its direct challenge to the government's moral and legal standing, forcing a public reckoning with Zambia's treatment of its former leaders. How evidence turned against the Lungu family. The legal battle over Edgar Lungu's burial has seen both sides present compelling arguments, but recent developments suggest that the evidence may be shifting against the Lungu family's position. This section examines the key pieces of evidence, the government's legal strategy, and the challenges faced by the family in court. The family's position. The Lung Web Zero Lungu family spokesperson Makibi Zulu said on Wednesday. Mr. Zulu said the government had released a draft program of the funeral without consultation with the family. The Lungu family's case rests on several key assertions. Lungu's wishes. The family claims that Lungu explicitly instructed that Hichilema should not be involved in his funeral and that he preferred a private burial in South Africa. A video submitted to the court, reportedly featuring Lungu expressing these wishes, is a cornerstone of their argument. Lack of legal obligation. The family's legal team, led by ADV Casper Welchmode, argues that Zambian law does not mandate a state funeral for former presidents, giving the family the right to decide the burial arrangements. Government overreach. The family accuses the government of violating agreed-upon terms and attempting to control the funeral for political purposes, citing instances of Lungu's mistreatment during his lifetime. The government's evidence. The Zambian government, through Attorney General Mulalo Kabesha, has presented evidence and arguments that challenge the family's position. Precedent of Kenneth Konda's case. Kabesha cited a local court ruling from 2021 regarding the burial of Zambia's first president, Kenneth Konda, which stated that former presidents are national property and their burials should be handled by the state. This precedent supports H.R. Webb. One suggests that Lungu's burial is a matter of public interest, not a private family affair. National tradition. The government emphasized that all Zambian presidents since independence have been buried at Embassy Park in Lusaka, reinforcing the expectation that Lungu's burial should follow this tradition. A grave has already been prepared at the site, signaling the government's commitment to this plan. Public interest. Kabesha argued that Lungu's status as a former head of state makes his funeral a national event, superseding personal wishes in favor of public interest and historical precedent. Turning points in the case. Several developments have weakened the family's position. Lack of concrete evidence. The government has challenged the authenticity and sufficiency of the family's evidence, particularly the video of Lungu's wishes. ADV Welchmode's argument that there is no evidence Lungu wanted to be buried in Zambia has been countered by the government's claim that the family's refusal to allow public viewing of the body raises doubts about the death itself. While speculative, this demand for transparency has put pressure on the family to substantiate their claims. Court's interim ruling. The Pretoria High Court's decision on June 25, 2025, to halt the burial in Johannesburg suggests that the court found the government's urgent application credible enough to warrant a delay. The agreement between the parties to postpone the burial until August 4th indicates that the family's initial plans were not legally airtight. Public and political pressure. The government has leveraged public sentiment and the PF's accusations to frame a doxical nature of the case, where both the family and the government have made statements that resonate with different audiences. The government's narrative of national unity and tradition has gained traction among some Zambians, who see the family's resistance as divisive. Analysis of evidence. The family's reliance on Lungu's stated wishes is compelling but lacks formal documentation, such as a will or notarized statement, which could weaken its legal standing. The government's reference to the Konda precedent carries significant weight, as it establishes a legal basis for state control over presidential burials. Additionally, the family's secrecy surrounding the body has fueled speculation and distrust, as noted in posts on X and articles in the Zambian Observer, which question the authenticity of Lungu's death. While these claims are inconclusive, they have shifted public perception, with some viewing the family's actions as suspicious or politically motivated. The government's preparation of a grave at Embassy Park and its diplomatic efforts, including South African Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola's visit to Zambia on June 22, 2025, demonstrate a proactive stance that aligns with national expectations. The court's willingness to entertain the government's case suggests that the legal framework may favor state-managed funerals, especially given the historical precedent. Challenges for the family. The Lungu family family faces several challenges. Legal ambiguity. Zambian law is silent on the specifics of former presidents' funerals, but the Conda ruling provides a strong counterargument to the family's claim of autonomy. Public backlash. The family's refusal to repatriate the body and their insistence on a private burial have been criticized by some as disrespectful to Zambian traditions, undermining their public support. Evidentiary burden. The family must provide clear, admissible evidence of Lungu's wishes to counter the government's claims, a task made difficult by the lack of formal documentation and the secrecy surrounding the body. Implications. The shift in evidence against the family has placed them in a defensive position, requiring them to prove not only Lungu's wishes, but also their legal right to override national tradition. The court's August 4th hearing will be critical, as it will determine whether the family can proceed with a private burial or if the government's demand for repatriation will prevail. The outcome could hinge on the admissibility of the family's video evidence and their ability to counter the Conda precedent. Political reactions from Zambia and beyond. The dispute over Edgar Lungu's burial has elicited strong reactions from various stakeholders in Zambia and across Africa, reflecting the case's political, cultural, and emotional significance. This section explores the responses from political parties, civil society, religious leaders, and international actors. In Zambia, Patriotic Front (PF), the PF, Lungu's political party, has been vocal in supporting the family's stance. Acting President Given Labinda accused the government of turning a solemn occasion into a political game, arguing that Hichilema's involvement would dishonor Lungu's memory. The PF has directed mourners to its headquarters rather than the government-designated mourning site, escalating the political standoff. United Party for National Development (UPND), Hichilema's party, has defended the government's position, with Attorney General Mulalo Kabesha emphasizing the legal and traditional obligation to hold a state funeral. The UPND has framed the dispute as a matter of national unity, accusing the PF of exploiting Lungu's death for political gain. Civil society and religious leaders. Civil society groups, such as the Council of Churches in Zambia, led by Emmanuel Chikoya, have called for dialogue and a resolution that preserves national dignity. They have expressed concern that the standoff is hurting the dignity of our country, urging both sides to prioritize unity over division. Public sentiment. Zambians are divided, with some supporting the family's right to honor Lungu's wishes, while others view the government's insistence on a state funeral as a necessary act of national pride. Social media platforms like X reflect this polarization, with posts ranging from calls for transparency to accusations of government overreach. Beyond Zambia, South African government. South African officials, including Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola, have taken a neutral stance, expressing respect for the family's wishes while supporting Zambia's desire for a state funeral. President Cyril Ramaphosa extended condolences and offered South Africa's assistance in facilitating a resolution. Regional leaders. Leaders like Kenya's president sent condolence messages, but the case has drawn limited commentary from other African heads of state, likely due to its sensitive nature. The involvement of a South African court has sparked discussions about the role of foreign jurisdictions in African disputes, with some viewing it as a test of regional cooperation. International media and analysts. Outlets like Reuters, BBC, and the New York Times have covered the case extensively, framing it as a continuation of the Lungu-Hichilema rivalry. Analysts note that Lungu's checkered legacy, praised for infrastructure but criticized for corruption and debt, colors public and international perceptions of the dispute. Key themes. Polarization. The reactions reflect Zambia's deep political divisions, with the PF and UPND using the case to advance their narratives ahead of the 2026 elections. National identity. The government's push for a state funeral taps into Zambia's pride in its history of peaceful transitions, while the family's stance emphasizes personal dignity over collective tradition. Regional dynamics. The case highlights the complexities of intra-African disputes, with South Africa's role as a neutral arbiter drawing attention to diplomatic norms. Social media sentiment. Posts on X, such as those from @AdvocateMahir, highlight Zambia's democratic history, but lament the impasse as a missed opportunity for reconciliation. Others, like @City_Press, focus on related political scandals, indicating broader distrust in governance. These reactions underscore the case's emotional and political weight, with many calling for a resolution that respects both Lungu's legacy and national unity. What this means for Africa's political future. The Lungu burial dispute has far-reaching implications for Zambia and Africa's political landscape, touching on issues of governance, reconciliation, and the treatment of former leaders. Implications for Zambia. Political polarization. The case exacerbates tensions between the PF and UPND, potentially shaping the 2026 election narrative. It highlights the need for mechanisms to depoliticize sensitive national events. Legal reforms. The absence of clear laws on presidential funerals, as noted by John Sangwa, suggests a need for legislative clarity to prevent future disputes. National healing. The standoff has delayed closure for millions of Zambians, raising questions about how the nation can move forward from its polarized past. Broader African context. Precedent for former leaders. The case could influence how African nations handle the deaths of former presidents, particularly in politically divided contexts like Zimbabwe or Kenya. Regional cooperation. South Africa's involvement underscores the importance of regional mechanisms, such as the African Union, in resolving disputes without compromising sovereignty. Democratic norms. The case tests Zambia's reputation for peaceful transitions, with implications for how African democracies balance individual rights with state obligations. Long-term questions. How can African nations honor former leaders without reigniting political divisions? What role should foreign courts play in intra-African disputes? Can polarized societies like Zambia achieve reconciliation through shared national rituals? Final thoughts and upcoming verdict. As the August 4, 2025 hearing approaches, the case remains unresolved, with significant stakes for both sides. The Lungu family must prove the authenticity of Lungu's wishes and counter the Konda precedent, while the government must balance national tradition with respect for personal dignity. The outcome will likely influence Zambia's political discourse, its treatment of former leaders, and its ability to heal old wounds. Key considerations. Legal outcome. The court's ruling could favor the government's demand for repatriation or uphold the family's right to a private burial, setting a precedent for future cases. Web 6 cases. Public sentiment. Zambians seek closure and unity, but the dispute has deepened divisions, complicating the mourning process. Political ramifications. The case could shape electoral narratives and public trust in institutions. Cultural impact. The prolonged uncertainty has disrupted traditional mourning, raising questions about dignity and national identity. Upcoming verdict. The Pretoria High Court's decision, expected by August 8, 2025, will determine whether Lungu is buried in South Africa or repatriated to Zambia. The verdict could either affirm the family's autonomy or reinforce the state's authority, with lasting implications for Zambia's political and cultural landscape. The outcome will be closely watched, as it reflects broader questions about how African nations navigate the legacies of their leaders in an era of political division.